Hey guys, Credible Crypto here. It has been a while since I've made my last video update on YouTube, and we're at a pretty interesting point here. So I wanted to get you guys caught up with what's been going on over the last month or so, and update you guys with my outlook here for the coming months, pretty much till the end of the year, and then what I expect to happen early next year. Um, Pretty exciting stuff. I think that I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for months now, ever since we made our first major impulse off of the lows of 3K. It's something that I've been saying for a while now, and although we did see a very strong drop recently, guys, which could in part be due to the entire coronavirus panic. Of course, it affected traditional equities markets dramatically, and so that may have carried on into crypto. But the premise has not changed, and that has been, and I've been saying this since we've been falling down since our highs at 14K, that I expect that we clear the highs here at 14K before the lows here at 3.1K are lost. Or in other words, I don't think that we're going to be going lower than 3.1K, and I expect that ultimately when this retracement is done and this correction is complete, wherever that may be, we will be clearing 14K next. So some people do think that we're headed below 3.1K. I am not of that opinion, and I'm of the opinion that as long as 3.1K holds, which I do think it will, we are still just making a higher low on the macro, and we will clear 14K next, essentially making everything here a massive major buy the dip opportunity. So my last YouTube video, I talked about a bearish and a bullish possibility, one in which our low here at 6K was the low, and one in which we would make one more lower low down to this cluster right here at around 5.5 to 5.8K. Now, with what happened with this massive drop that happened, there were some issues with BitMEX, the leading exchange, and there's some theories as to why we dropped as low as we did. There was an issue with their liquidation engine. It's a complicated story that I'm not the most tech savvy guy to really be digging into it. But the bottom line is, many do believe that the move to the downside was essentially forced lower than it should have been due to this liquidation issue on BitMEX, which essentially forced the price of Bitcoin a lot lower than where it really should have gone. The price on BitMEX at this point in time, when this occurred, was actually off by around $500 compared to every other major exchange. So there was some weird stuff going on here that may have exacerbated this drop here and caused us to fall lower than expected. But my target, if we lost the lows of 6K, based on the two scenarios I showed you guys in my last video, was between 5.5 to 5.8K. And I have to assume that had we not seen the massive liquidation issue that we saw, there's a chance that that is where we would have stopped. But because of these massive liquidations and whatever other reason, maybe the global panic of the coronavirus or whatever it may have been, the volatility increased, our drop went lower than expected. But the bottom line, guys, is that we did not lose 3.1K. So today I'm going to talk about what I envision seeing here for over the coming months, and let's just jump right into it, guys. So we're going to start off with progression of the chart that I'm showing you guys here. I posted this probably around March 10th, and I tweeted and I said I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want to jump the gun, but it looks to me like this could have been the low. Now, this was at a point in time where many were saying there's no way this was the low because we had this massive fall. Massive falls don't just stop, they don't just end. We usually get follow through and continuation. But what I had noticed, of course, was that we did have a potential wave count with this looking like a final C leg to the downside of what could have been a W, expanded flat X, or sorry, a W, a small little X, and then an expanded flat Y with an ending C wave that ended right here. And I noticed that the W and the Y would have been a perfect one-to-one extension of each other. Of course, I'm not expecting to lose 3.1K, so there's really not much lower that we could fall after this. And what else I noticed, guys, was that the volume on this drop was quite significant. And the volume was something else that made me believe that this very well could have been the bottom when I posted this on March 10th or so, when you were right about here, all right? So guys, here's a chart with the volume. I've gotten rid of all the Elliott wave analysis. We've gotten rid of all the labeling. And I just want to point out the volume, guys. This is another reason why I thought after this drop completed that this very well could have been the bottom. Note that the volume here, let me go to the weekly and make it a little bit more clear. Note that the volume here on every major drop or every major up, major top and major bottom we saw a massive spike in volume, right? So at this major top, massive spike in volume. At this major bottom, massive spike in volume. At this major top, massive spike in volume. And once again, at this major bottom, which I believe it to be, a massive spike in volume. And guys, note that we're making lower highs and higher lows, which is a neutral market structure, right? This is not bearish. This is not bullish. As long as this is a higher low, this is consolidation. And normally consolidation leads to continuation, guys. In other words, I think this is a major consolidation before we continue to the upside and make new highs. And I do think that the low is in here at 3.8K. Now, this is the volume analysis. Pair that along with, of course, the Elliott wave count. And I think we have a very good argument to say that the bottom here is in. Now, further from that, guys, I posted another chart that takes a look at things from a different perspective. And I posted this on my Twitter. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. This was posted on March 15th. And essentially, I said that if we could get a weekly close above this key level, which is that 5.5 to 5.8K region, that cluster of support, if we could get a weekly close above this level and then further get a monthly close above this level, then I think that the bottom is in and we're essentially heading to 14K next, all right? Now, interestingly enough, guys, I was met with a lot of criticism when I posted this. Not surprising. People tend to get the most bearish at the bottom and tend to get the most, get the most bearish at the bottom and the most bullish at the top. And that was no different here. If we take a look at my post here, you can just read the comments. Most of them are pretty negative. Right here, this guy, I've always respected your post, but I think it's incredibly irresponsible. Let's see what else. It's actually, okay, not that one. TA doesn't seem reliable in our current panic market. That's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's important to remember, guys, and I remember someone put this out really well. They said, if you're in a storm and the waves are really choppy and everything's going crazy, you don't throw away your compass, right? So essentially, when we're going through these panic times, TA is really all we can look at to give us some sort of indication as to where we may be headed. And it's important not to get caught up in the panic and ignore the TA. So that was really well said by one of my followers. Where are the buyers coming from? Hopium is what we need. No one is going to be buying in volume and price to make this happen. Da 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 da. Pipe dream. What about the weekly logarithmic chart? The trend is your friend. It's time to face up to the facts. It's a wrecked 6-year trend. Come on, Moon Health, Food Water. Wait for total collapse of stocks. Everybody, their grandmother. Okay, this guy actually, he's kind of on my side. He says that everyone's bearish, market is bullish, and I tend to agree with that. Don't forget the narrative has changed across the world, so this might rewrite the rules. Step 3 looks like hopium overload in 2 years, sure. I mean, the amount of negativity on this post, this point I'm shorting step 1. This guy got liquidated. The amount of hopium here, guys, is crazy, right? Or sorry, the amount of FUD and negativity here is insane, right? So everyone's saying this is not going to happen. There's a few guys there that agreed with me, but the majority of comments are pretty much bearish. Now fast forward to a week or a couple of days, and we got the weekly close I was looking for. And then I said, now we're looking for a monthly close above this region here. All right, so step 1 is complete. We're looking for step 2. And guys, let's fast forward to today, which is going to be our monthly close. All right, here we are today. Today is the monthly close. And check out where we are, guys. Boom. Right above the key level that I said we need to be above. And I said if we get a monthly close above here, bottom is in, and we're headed to 14K in my opinion. And lo and behold, we are currently doing it. We have an hour and 11 minutes until the monthly close, but I expect that we close above this region. And guys, we did it. So step 1 complete, step 2 complete, and I think step 3 is 14K plus. All right, now let's talk about how we get to 14K from where we are now, because it's a very interesting count, and there's a reason that even up until this monthly close, I was a little bit hesitant here because of the way that we've been moving up. And if we go to the lower time frames, we can see that essentially off of our lows, guys, we're not really making a clear impulse. I see a 3-legged move. I see a 3-legged move. Essentially a lot of corrective structures, right? And corrective structures usually indicate a pullback in the dominant trend before further continuation in the direction of the impulse, right? And we already know, as I charted with earlier, that I have this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this is technically an impulse. We're getting a correction here. People would assume then that we get another impulse down to clear the lows here at 3.6K. However, I mentioned that I believe this impulse is actually the ending C wave of a flat correction, which means it completes the structure, this structure here, rather than being the start of a new structure to the downside. So that's the main difference between me expecting this to be the end of our drop and a break to the upside now versus those who think this is the start of a larger move to the downside, right? Now, how do we go up from here, and how is this the bottom if we're making a corrective move to the upside? That is the major question, right? And you guys will recall that in my last video, I mentioned that we could expect to see a flat correction. I mentioned that this was our first impulse up, and then we could get a sort of flat correction, right? Oops, a flat correction, something like this, with another leg up to clear these highs, another leg down. So something like this, right, is what I said we could get, and then break up, right? So I still think we're getting that flat correction. It just looks a little bit different. So here, let's take a look at let's zoom out a little bit and go to the higher time frames, and I'll talk about how I expect that we get to 14K into new highs while going up in a corrective manner. So here you guys go. I've zoomed out drastically here to the Brave New Coin Index, which shows a chart of Bitcoin's price since inception, right? And this will give us a better idea of how I expect that we continue up here, this being the bottom, while still making corrective moves to the upside. So really zoomed out here, but recall that this move off of, this is our 3K low right here, all right? So this is a 3K low, which I said was the bottom, and this is our 14K high, which I said will cross before ever going below 3.1K. And currently we've dipped down to, this one says 3.8K because the Brave New Coin Index is an index, right? So it takes numbers from all the exchanges, and I mentioned that BitMEX went lower than most. So this one says 3.9K, but the other chart that I showed you, it had us at 3.5 or 3.6K. But bottom line, guys, is I still think this is a flat correction. It's just a much larger flat correction, right? So we've here made our three-legged move to the downside, which is completed in my opinion, expecting another three-legged move to the upside and then another three-legged move to the downside, and then we get our impulse to match this wave one impulse, right? So this type of clear and clean impulsive structure, I don't expect to appear until essentially the end of this year or the start of next year. So January 2021 is when I would expect we start to see some clear impulsive moves. Up until then, I do expect we move to the upside, but it'll be in a corrective manner. It'll be in a choppy manner. So it's going to trick a lot of people. A lot of people are looking for an impulse, a clean impulse as a move to the upside. What this does is essentially catches everyone off guard, right? Most people, myself included, have been looking at this move up off the lows as a corrective structure, right? I can't zoom any lower on this particular chart, but I showed you guys on the other charts how this looks like a corrective structure, a bunch of three-legged moves, right? So most, right, are expecting this to resolve into a retracement followed by another impulse, such as this one, right, to the downside. That's what most are expecting here, all right? But if you take a look at the other factors that I showed you guys, the volume analysis, the monthly close back above essentially this level right here, right? Essentially this level right here, monthly close back above, everything is telling me that this was likely the bottom, right? So many will be waiting. They'll be waiting to see this corrective move complete, and they'll be waiting for some sort of an impulse down to clear these lows at 3.9K, and some are even waiting for us to clear the lows at 3.1K. In my opinion, they're going to be left waiting for a very long time because I don't think that's happening. And what I think is happening is we're getting a corrective move to the upside, but ultimately this is going to continue to grind up, all right? We're going to clear 14K like I've been saying. That's the next step. That's step number 3. Then we'll get some sort of a retracement, maybe retest this 10K region, which was also very, very significant on the high time frames. And then from there, guys, from there we'll actually get our impulse to the upside. That'll be our third wave. We'll get our fourth wave, and then we'll get our fifth and final wave to complete this cycle. I don't know if it's going to go to 150K, guys. This is a very, very, very basic, it's not even an estimate, it's just I wanted to show you guys the wave structure, right? We're looking for a 5-wave move. We've got our first off of 3K that establishes 3K as the low. As long as 3K is held, we're bullish in my opinion, and this just shows that we're looking for 5 waves. I'm expecting the second wave to play out as this running flat correction, and then I'm expecting an impulsive third wave, then some sort of a fourth wave, usually, very commonly, a triangle, and then a final 5th wave to take us to our high, whether that be 140K, whether that be 100K, whether that be 80K. It all depends on how long we take to get there. The longer we take there, The longer we take, the higher that I expect us to go. I expect that we do follow this logarithmic curve to the upside, and so generally, the more time it takes for us, the longer that we move sideways, the more space we have to get to the top of this curve, right? So this is my analysis, guys, and I'm very now even more so confident with our monthly close above 6.4K that the low is in. The low is in at 3.8K or 3.5K or whatever that may have been, and that we will continue to grind up here. And this is essentially, guys, although it doesn't seem like it yet, we have started the next major bull run with this wave off the low, and we're just simply going to continue up over the years. Have to be patient, of course, but I do think that this type of movement is going to give our alts plenty of time to run, so I'm excited about that, guys. And yeah, just wanted to post this video because it's been a while since I've made an update, and I think this is incredibly important, guys. And this is very, very promising and very bullish. Some have asked me, how do you see this playing out, or how do you see crypto playing out in the wake of what traditional equities are facing right now with the coronavirus pandemic? And to be frank, I've said for a while now, I don't believe that that these markets are necessarily correlated. However, consider that if we are essentially moving sideways for the next year, even if we do go into a recession, which I think is quite likely, even if we do go into a recession here, typical recessions lasting anywhere from 12 to 18 months, I believe, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken. This still gives us a year of sideways movement before we actually break all-time highs. So many have been expecting all-time highs this year. I've said in countless videos and countless updates that I'm not expecting all-time highs this year. A break of 14K, sure, but all-time highs, no, not yet. So essentially moving sideways while we may be in a recession, and then as hopefully we exit this recession and hopefully it doesn't turn into something more than that, we then see a continuation of the upside. So it fits along with a global macro perspective, assuming that we just get essentially a recession over the next year or so and nothing more serious than that. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much my answer to that question, but I tend to look at the charts independently of each other. Again, as long as 3K is held, I see no reason to panic here or to be bearish when we're essentially making higher lows and wave structures telling me that we are headed back up again. That is all I have for this update, guys. Really just wanted to focus on Bitcoin here. I felt like this was a pretty short and sweet video update, but I think it gets my point across. And yeah, I think the monthly close is looking beautiful. As always, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to cover here. You know what? Let me just real quick go to the monthly here. And just to kind of further show you guys why this level is so important, if I go ahead and extend this out, essentially you can see that from our high at 20K, we came down consolidated at the 6K level. So this 6K level is very, very significant before we capitulated. I consider this capitulation. We dropped essentially 50%. And then we broke back above it. And this, because we closed the monthly back above this level, this was essentially just a retest. Any pushes below this level were instantly bought back up. And so this drop from 6K down to 3K and back above 6K was essentially a deviation, right? A deviation, a final shakeout to shake out everyone who was hanging on. And now we're not going to give them a chance to get back in now that we've closed back above 6K, in my opinion. And a lot of people are going to be left waiting on the sidelines, right? We're in a situation right now where with a global situation, a lot of people are hesitant to put money in speculative assets. A lot of them got shaken out. A lot of them exited when this coronavirus pandemic happened, thinking everything's going to tank. And they were met by a massive amount of buyers who essentially bought everything right back up and put us right back up at 6K, essentially shaking them out one more time. So this was just a massive shakeout. I tweeted once that, I think I tweeted one of my charts that this could be essentially, yeah, with this post I tweeted, this could be the greatest shakeout I've ever seen if we close above 6K. And guys, essentially, I think that's what it was, the greatest shakeout I've ever seen. So yeah, that's why this level is so significant. That's it for this update, guys. If you guys don't already follow me on Twitter for regular updates at Credible Crypto. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the update.